relationships to possibly be able to get more material from them over the long term, but basically to be able to document their existence within Tennessee. And our goal is to become the central institution of research on Tennessee whiskey, but also on other aspects of distilling, fermenting, and brewing. And again, I said, I will get around eventually, I promise, to the stamps, because it was the distilling, fermenting, and brewing collection that gave birth to the Philatelic collection. So the adult beverage industry, distilling industry, the liquor industry is a highly regulated and a highly taxed industry. And we collected a lot of information, or started collecting a lot of information that came out of the government. So one of the things that naturally led to it when you started getting statements from the government about revenues and things like that were the revenue stamps. It was sort of a natural progression to go to that, because the revenue stamp, as you are all aware, it's the physical manifestation of the tax paid. It was something that researchers could actually look at, sort of all of the graphs, the charts, all that, but also see a physical manifestation of that in a stamp. And so what you see in front of you now was literally the first stamps that we purchased. So we purchased a few local state Tennessee stamps, and we also purchased this federal beer stamp, and we got them from, of course, Eric Jackson, because it was we were allowed to buy from him. We could set it up, and he had what we wanted, and we just did a little bit of a foray. But I kind of wanted to go beyond that and say, well, revenue stamps are great, and we can still try to collect a complete set of the Tennessee liquor, wine, distilled spirits, and beer stamps. But it would be nice to have something that is a little more photogenic, a little bit more picturesque. So let's try to do the postage stamps. So it started to grow a little bit more. And we ended up getting the Belgian Trappist one. We got what we could of the US. So we have the alcoholism, you can beat it, the prohibition enforced, and some Pinot Noir grapes. Because of the postal sort of restrictions on the depiction of alcohol in here on our postage stamps, we're pretty limited. So instead of staying strictly with US, we expanded out wide, and we can get some wonderful examples. You can see them there. One of my favorite is this Russian stamp right in the middle here. It's the Ministry of Alcohol. I thought that was nice. And the other one that I really particularly like is Cinderella down at the bottom here, the Wine for America drop. I like the colors of it. I like that it's a Cinderella for that. It expanded even more. So we went from revenue, we ended up getting some regular postage stamps, which we're continuing to collect, because we're going to collect any depiction at all of alcohol or liquor on stamps. So it could be the components, it could be the production, it could be the actual items itself. I wanted to add in covers. So we got this wonderful one from St. Pierre and Miquelon, and it kind of burgeoned from there. And I've got a couple examples here. I got this one that has Albert Gallatin in it. He was opposed to the whiskey tax that eventually got imposed and then became the Whiskey Rebellion. But he was opposed to that. But also we have a town that's just outside Nashville called Gallatin that was named after him. And I thought that was a nice piece that ties into our Tennessee. And finally, one of the things that became a must-have was the American Topical Association's cover from their 2017 show, which shows the famous moonshiner Popcorn Sutton, who used to make his moonshine in East Tennessee in the mountains between Tennessee and North Carolina. I loved their brewing up topicals. I thought that was just wonderful, but it went into our bits that we have on him. He actually was finally arrested and convicted, and then actually committed suicide before he could go and serve his sentence. He wasn't going to go back in jail. And we decided to expand again, and we added in postcards. A lot of the postcards, that we did at first were temperance postcards or prohibition postcards. So the one up here, the ribbon is white. It comes from the Women's Christian Temperance Union, and the quote is from Frances Willard, the woman who founded it. But we also have this postcard that asks you if does it pay to drink, and it was one of the ones, and it dates back into Prohibition days, just prior, like 1915. And then we have this one here about saying that if the prohibition passes, we're going to have to get out under the water wagon. We've expanded that to get postcards that depict distilleries, vineyards. We have some fabulous ones that just picked hops, hops production and hops harvesting out in Washington State. We decided to add in some reference materials. So these were some of our early ones. We got the state revenue catalog. We bought a Scott's. We bought all 13 volumes of Scott's. I don't think we'll keep up getting them every year, but we have a 2021 set from volume 1 to volume 6, all the parts. And then I picked up the fundamentals of philately and a few other ones, and we're always looking to add more for that. And we had a lot in our general stacks, and now I'm starting to go through and see what ones in our circulating stacks that we have that we may want to move into special collections. I'm always very careful because things in the circulating stacks can circulate and things in special collections don't. You have to use them actually in our reading room. And I want to try to keep a balance of what people can check out and what I actually want to preserve so they won't go lost or missing. We are a federal depository library with the federal government, and this past spring, we became a preservation steward for our documents that we collect for the distilling collection. And because we collect stamps, I picked up some materials that other federal depository library programs were getting rid of that had to do with the postal department. And I picked up part of this set from the reports, the annual reports from the Postmaster General, and we have some early 19th century, and I'm hoping to continue to fill that in as well and get what I can in the area I would like to do pre-71 for that. As we're going through our collection, we discovered that there's some unexpected finds in some of our existing collections. Margaret Lindsay Warden has we discovered that there was a junior stamp album. It was the Youth Companion Junior Stamp Album. And in that, we found some wonderful things. This lovely little Tuppence blue fell out. It was not even hinged anymore. It was just sort of caught in, it fell out. And when I found this wonderful cover, which also fell out. And you can see up here, it's from Hang Chow, and it dates 15 March 00, so 1900. And you've got some stamps up here that are from, I was told, from the Japanese Empire. But on the reverse, you have a Chinese empire stamp from that time frame, and it was postmarked in Shanghai on 17th March 1900. And it was coming from a J.V. Lee, who was a Southern Presbyterian missionary in Hangzhou, to a Dr. E.G. Wood, who is a medical professor at the University of Nashville. And so this is my research right now that I'm working on, is to identify J.V. Lee, who I have. Her name is Jane Verenia Lee, and she actually was educated at the University of Nashville. She graduated with a medical degree and then went to serve the rest of her life over in China with the Presbyterian missions, and she actually ended up dying over there and was buried. But I'd like to know more about her and Mr. Wood and their connection with Margaret Lindsay Warden. How did this envelope come into the hands of Margaret Lindsay Warden, which then became into our hands? It's been fascinating, and also just learning about the different stamps and the mail at the time in China and how it would got over here. So this is sort of what I've been working on, and I hope to turn my research into an article as well. Some other things that we have letters within other bits of our collection. This one here is a letter from a merchant located here in Murfreesboro from 1877, and it was going up to Nashville. We are starting digitizing parts of our collection, and what you see up front of you is going to be in one of the early parts of our digital collection. We also decided to expand the scope of the philatelic collections as we started to use our philatelic material in with our exhibits, our traditional exhibits that we do twice a year. They provided a richness and a different angle of how we could present our material than we could ever do before. So we started to look at and decide that the philatelic collection was a collection unto itself, but it shouldn't just support the distilling collection, that it should also reflect some of our other major areas of collecting, one of which is the Civil War. So we went out and purchased a Confederate stamp, and we got the cheapy one, I know, but it was what we could afford. We're a state school. And we started to look at getting postcards. In Murfreesboro, we have a national battlefield. It is the Battle of Stones River. And this here is a vintage photograph of part of the battlefield. And we want to try to get more either photographs or postcards of the battlefield over time to be able to do that. We also picked up a lot of the stamps that depict the Civil War that the U.S. has put out. I don't think we have them all yet, but close, and any kind of other things that go along with that. Some of the other collections that we buy to collect to support are our equine. So up the top, you can see the first day cover with a Tennessee walking horse, which is really big and important, and it features prominently in the Warden collection. The Spanish Riding School from Austria stamp is right in the middle. We have another equine collection, the Joan Hunt collection, and she did an operating stable, and she focused in on dressage, and a lot of what she gave to us has to do with the Spanish Riding School and their techniques. And so this fit in very well with what we have from there. And then, of course, we had to get the Netherlands stamp from 2012 that has the Artisan Dimensional books, the little pop-up stamp. So we bought two of them. So one we can lay flat, and the other one that we could actually, as you can see right here, we popped out, and we can actually display it as popped out. And it is wonderful. And I wish we could get other similar kind of things, but this is truly unique, and it's something that does enhance. And we also started to expand the scope of the philatelic collection beyond our regular collections. One of the things, we had a few things from the 1851 Great Exposition over in England. So we started to pick up what we could of other aspects of world fairs. And so what you have in front of you is a postcard, which is one of the official souvenir postcards of the 1893 in Chicago, a little bit roughed up Colombian, and we also have the $50 coin that was used to help raise money for the exposition down here with Columbus's head on it. And we've been trying to get all of representation, something very similar for all of the ones that appeared in the U.S. We have scattered representation right now, but we're hoping to go through and get them all. And then here is some things from the Tennessee World's Fair from 1982. It's a very stark contrast, I think, from the colors and the style from 1893 to 1982. This screams out 80s to me. I just look at it, I'm like, yes, that's exactly, definitely fits in on the time frame and period. But I do love the stamps, and we did get them also on cover. And there's a nice contrast with that. Right now for revenue stamps, we have 132, some stats. Postage stamps and sheets, we have 245 with an additional 100 to be processed. Covers, we have 43. Postcards, we have 121 with about another dozen waiting to be processed. And books, we have 43 with additional materials located in the circulating stacks for that. So that's 43 titles, that's not 43 volumes. As you can see that, the Scott is multiple volume, and so was the post office report, but we have 43 separate titles for there. And you can see over here is a slight bit of some of our Tennessee stamps that we have for that. The last thing I'd like to talk about, again, we sort of kept expanding our scope of the Philatelic collection, and while it's not technically under the rubric of special collections, since I'm the special collections librarian and editor, it does fall in. I do a lot of that work at work for Open Philately. So I started Open Philately back in July of 2022. I wanted to have an open access journal, something that was open for all, and I wanted to be able to have some quality philatelic research that folks didn't have to pay for, that wasn't behind a paywall in any way, shape, or form, that was there, that would solidly be there because we would be, the university itself would be archiving it and ensuring that it would be there even after I am gone for that. Open Philately takes a very broad view of philately and welcomes submissions that deal with postage, revenue stamps, postal history, cancellations, covers, printing techniques, collection arrangement, material preservation and conservation. If you can dream it, submit an article. We might publish it. Everything that we have now is editorially board reviewed. We have a fairly robust editorial board with representation from the United States, Canada, Australia. We're very pleased with that. We have some really nice folks with some really good expertise coming from postcards and stamps. One of our editorial board members is Michelle Bresso, who's very active in the American Topical Association and the Knoxville Philatelic Society, and I'm very grateful for her early support in both writing and agreeing to serve on the editorial board. We are currently accepting articles for the second and subsequent editions. We hope to get out 2 issues a year right now. That seems like an insurmountable number, but hopefully it'll get easier as it goes. To be considered for the second issue, we're hoping to publish that in December or January. We're asking that things be submitted by October. After that, they would be looked at for the subsequent editions and issues of Open Philately for this. After we get out our second issue, the Digital Scholarship Initiative, which operates the platform that this has here, which is in the Walker Library, they will fill out the paperwork and apply for an ISSN or an International Standard Serial Number. And we will also get DOIs, Digital Object Identifiers, for our complete issues, but not for the additional articles. Right now it's a cost measure, but we have to get our second issue published before we can get that as well for this. Some of the things that we want to do is continue to collect more Tennessee-centric materials. We're aiming to have a complete collection of Tennessee revenue stamps. We're looking to attain representative selection of revenue stamps from across the 50 states. We have representation from all but 4, Connecticut, Hawaii, Massachusetts, New Jersey. We are sadly lacking. We're also looking to add stamps that depict blacksmithing, farriery, dressage, more U.S. Civil War, more fairs and expositions. We're always looking for temperance and anything we can have that is Eudora Welty, because we have a small Welty. Cinderellas are of particular interest, and we also hope to grow out our literature collection. And donations and gifts are most welcome. Right now, we also have some goals for making our collection discoverable. We want to create MARC records and load them into our catalog, so anyone who searches our catalog will know. We want to create a digital collection of philatelic materials that we're allowed to do that are in the public domain. We're going to continue to reach out to local and regional philatelic communities, and I'm really glad that I got to speak to y'all. And one of my real goals, and this is a long-term one, is to hold a philatelic-centric event at the library sometime in the future. It would probably be more of a regional or a local one, but I want to start to get the local philatelists and folks who are involved with the post-crossing and postcards into the library to know what we have and to get them to help support us and use us and whatnot from that. I can be reached here. There's my email address and my phone number, and those are our URLs to our special collections and to Open Philately. And I'm going to stop sharing for now, and that was a lot, and I talked really fast, but I'll take any questions that people may have. And it's okay if you don't have any. It's perfectly fine. I will not take offense.
This is Dennis Owen. Let me just say I enjoyed the presentation very much. And do you have active stamp clubs in the university's area?
It's interesting that you say that. In Rutherford County, so we are in Rutherford County. We are about 30 miles south of Nashville, so that's the biggest city and also the state capital. In Rutherford County, no. The nearest stamp club is actually the Nashville Philatelic Society, which meets on East Nashville. So that's about a 40-mile drive, 45 minutes to an hour, depending on traffic.
Right.
So it's pretty significant. But in Murfreesboro, there was one. It is now semi-defunct. I think it's alive in name only. So yeah, that is something that would be really lovely to be able to have as a local club. They could come and meet in special collections. We could stay open a little later. We have special collections hours, which means no nights, no weekends. But that's a great, yeah.
Yeah, it might be possible to create a core group from the student body.
Yeah.
Maybe soliciting students as they come aboard as to whether they have philatelic history or not.
Yep.
Maybe you could pull something together.
Yeah, no, that would be lovely. And the current exhibit that we just put up, it's called Making Connections, and it's about hidden collections within our collection. So the smaller things, and there's actually quite a lot of the philatelic material that got put out, and we're hoping that we're able to kind of, when the students come in, to take a look at that, to talk to them about it and see how engage. My thought was possibly reaching out to the post-crossing community first, because they have been meetups in the area for post-crossing, and that seems to be very, very popular. And to go that route first and to try to get them in and see, because usually there's that Venn diagram where there's the philatelist and the post-crossers, but then there's the two that meet, and to be able to see to kind of go from there. We're hoping that maybe that might be it.
There's a great range of subjects that you're collecting, and that's absolutely wonderful. It is almost unlimited possibilities as to where you could go.
It really is. There's stamps in there that have that almost, you look at, like, this really has anything to do with any of our current collections. It's like, but it could, and you never know how it could present. I picked up, we have a operating common press, it's a replica of an 18th century common press. And so printing and printing history is really important still also in our collection. Our head of collections, Alan, that's his baby, and so I've been I picked up the stamps that depict that, or depict printing, and it's the fact that I can do this for a job, it still amazes me. So yeah.
And is I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. I just had a question that tipped my tongue. I apologize, I lost it. But anyway, wonderful presentation, very enjoyable.
Thank you.
Hey, Susan, this is Bill. What was the Massachusetts piece you were missing from your collection?
We do not have a single, not one, revenue stamp that represents either wine, beer, or liquor from Massachusetts. I wanted to have at least a representation from each of the 50 states that would have that, because that's our biggest part of our philatelic collection. And Massachusetts, I don't have, and it feels like every time I look around, I can't find one. So that's what I'm lacking. And it could be either beer, wine, or distilled spirits. I just need something to represent Massachusetts. It's my home state. I can't find it.
I know the Boston Philatelic, the original Boston Philatelic did several books on revenue stamps for Massachusetts.
Nice.
They're available up on eBay. They're a little rich for me because I don't collect revenue, but
yeah. We can't buy off of eBay. See, yes, and that is one thing that we're a state institution. We have really stringent procurement rules and regulations for it, and there's a reason for that. We're spending state dollars, and there's a point of me that says, I'm paying state dollars for a stamp. Very mindful of that. So, and eBay is one thing, and it has to do with their terms and conditions of service. There's different state laws, there's an indemnification clause, and the procurement and attorneys are like, no way. So we deal with regular vendors from the majority of our stuff, and I'm glad there's some out there for that. And I have not written to and asked Eric Jackson if he could just keep an eye out for an inexpensive, these 4 states for us, because that's the bulk of our stuff for revenue stamps have come from him. Right.
I can definitely keep an eye out for some of the stamp shows up here. And if I come across that book anywhere, it's selling for over $100.
Oh,
really. So if I come across it in a real place and not eBay, I'll let you know.
Thank you.
I won't be able to buy it and donate it, but I'll let you know.
No, but just let me know it's there. Because
Yeah.
I mean, it literally, if it's on we buy through Abe Books, that we're allowed to do, and we can do some
Abe?
other things. Abe Books, yeah, and A Libris and some of those ones. But the eBay, and although they have some really lovely things, and we've found other things for our collections, we collect some artifacts as well. So things like a Civil War bullet, things that will help again enhance, sort of verging a little into museum-y kind of territory, but not quite for that. Those come up on eBay all the time, and some of them are very reasonable, but they'll go.
Did you work with Powell Books?
Well, Powell's, they sell through Abe Books.
Oh.
Both Powell's do, both the one in Portland and the one in Chicago. There's one in Chicago as well, on 57th Street. But both of those go through Abe Books. So yeah, we've actually purchased for both of those.
How long it's been since I bought anything through Powell's.
Yeah, well, everyone does one of the aggregators now. I mean, it makes sense. I mean, again, look at HipStamp. You've got this wonderful aggregator that goes out all over. It's like one-stop shopping if you're a consumer, and it makes sense, and it makes sense from the dealer's point of view too. They get a wider audience for that.
Is HipStamp something you can purchase from?
We can, and we have looked on there. And again, it's weird. eBay, no. HipStamp, okay. So, yeah.
Excuse me, I do recall the question I forgot, and that is, it's Open Philately strictly an online journal, or will it be print as well?
It is strictly online. It's open access. I'm a librarian, and open access is a large part of what we do and what we support. And so I was asked at the beginning if I wanted to make print copies available, and I was like, no, we're just going to do online. I wouldn't be able to make it free if I offered print, and I want to make sure that it's completely open and free for that. And to do that is to keep it completely open access and online.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Sure.
Have you confirmed that Massachusetts has ever issued a liquor, wine, beer tax stamp? So this is
I've not.
I can't find anything.
Yeah, I've not been able to verify that, but you know, and maybe they haven't, and neither has Connecticut or New Jersey. But
I was about to make the same comment because, you know, you grew up here, so you know
yeah,
the blue laws. I mean, it
blue
was
laws.
a very
Yeah.
like temperance state,
Yeah.
right? And so I don't know if they even allowed that.
Yep.
Yeah, but there
Yeah,
was a rum trade, at least
But
there was a
they-
rum trade moving out
they-
of Medford.
Right.
I
But
wonder
they
if
still-
they taxed it somewhere else.
But they sold it because they were still dry towns and wet towns. But growing up, you could buy it. You know, you just couldn't buy it on a Sunday. You had to go across to New Hampshire. But you could
Exactly.
buy it. You know, there were packies in my home. I grew up in Ipswich. There's package stores. You know, Marcarell's package store on North Main Street was there. You know, so but you know, but there definitely was, and I'm pretty sure they were taxing it. Massachusetts wouldn't tax it. So there you go.
And I had a quick question about your personal collection of Czechoslovakia.
Sure.
Do you also collect the German occupation stamps during the period, or just stamps issued by Czechoslovakia as an independent country?
I collect the German occupation. So the entire time frame through from 1918 to 1992 to the Velvet Revolution to when they split, I collect, including Slovakia from 1939 to 1945, and I collect Bohemia and Moravia as well. Yeah.
Because that adds a lot of fun when you have all those other prints.
It does. It really does. And they also have a little bit of like Eastern Silesia for a short period of time. And there's a couple other funky little bits in that time frame for it. But yeah, the early stuff is wild up until like, 1945, 50, and then it becomes sort of regular routine.
Eastern Bloc stuff, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, do we have any other questions?
No, thank you. The presentation was wonderful.
Thank you. And I do encourage, if anyone is a writer and they